This is almost certainly the worst quality film in the entire series that you'll have to put up with. My excuse is that I'm stuck in France while Britain is shrouded in some weird mantle of volcanic ash, and so I'm unable to get home, so I'm using just a basic little Kodak camera, which actually does the job rather well, to get my thoughts across. And this is about salesmanship. My apologies, by the way, the backdrop is actually a curtain, it's not a carpet, just in case you thought I was in some Middle Eastern hostage situation. Now, I think for two reasons, and two multiplicative reasons, what David Ogilvy was unapologetic about calling salesmanship will be vastly more important in the next 10 years than it was in the last 10 years. And I'll explain why. Two reasons. The first thing is that if you look at where advertising spend is located, it's moved and shifted markedly over the last 15 years. Maybe 15 years ago, more than 2/3 of all advertising expenditure was for what you might lazily call packaged goods. Products you had to buy that you bought in a supermarket from a limited range of competing brands that managed to get distribution. Things like washing powder would be the classic example. So you went in, by and large, influenced principally by advertising and by packaging, and of course by the availability of the brand in the first place, and you made that decision pretty much from what presented itself to you on the shelf. The role of salesmanship there was relatively limited. Advertising did actually a large part of your choosing for you. What you see now is that that's no longer 2/3 of advertising spend, it's actually less than 1/3. More than 2/3 of advertising expenditure actually consists of things which aren't like packaged goods at all. For a start, you don't have to buy them at all. They're things you don't have to do. Giving up smoking, for example, changing your cable provider, changing your broadband service provider, getting broadband, getting digital television, renewing your home insurance. So first of all, it's stuff that you don't actually have to do at all. That's a significant difference from the kind of thing you bought in a supermarket. Secondly, the choice architecture and the frame of reference within which you make that decision is completely different. Previously, with packaged goods, the supermarket provided you with your choice architecture. You saw what was probably most prominently displayed on the shelf. You made a brief trade-off regarding price, and that was your decision. Here, the behavioural ask is on a totally different order. Again, you may not have to renew your home insurance. You may feel that's something you can postpone. You don't have to renew your subscription to such and such a magazine. But 2/3 of advertising is asking people to do something which is a much bigger behavioural change than simply moving their hand 2 feet to the right. So the whole nature of what we're advertising has changed, and it's changed towards those sectors which have a greater behavioural component, where behavioural economics indeed is actually as important as advertising. The second big change, of course, and you don't need me to tell you this, over the last 15 years, is the media within which we actually operate. And whereas 15 years ago the most potent media were exclusively those which tend to operate at some distance from the point of sale, nowadays, if we actually squander contextual media, if we don't actually look at the behavioural media, the media that communicate in real time to people as they are actually making a decision rather than at one removed from the point of decision, you're actually squandering many of the advantages that the new media of the last 15 years actually bring us. So those two things, I think, act as a multiplier, and the reason is that we simply have to understand now that advertising has two parts to it. Paul Feldwick, the advertising guru in the UK, puts it most beautifully. He says there is still a very, very strong role for conventional advertising in imbuing products with saleability, but more and more the sales job, which used to be to some extent, the work of the supermarket, the work purely of point of sale and packaging, the actual job of sales as well as saleability actually falls to an agency as well. I'll give you just a quick example. If you can reduce the checkout procedure on a basket in any online retail site from 3 clicks to 2, your sales go up by 40%. That sort of behavioural understanding is as important now to actually maintaining a successful brand as the understanding of how to make a great TV commercial. The two things are to some extent very closely related, but they are separate things. And I think Paul Feldwick's right to make this point. That if you simply do great advertising, but you don't look at the behavioural context within which decisions are made, you don't look at the path dependency within which decisions are made, then what you're in danger of doing is pulling very, very hard on a lever without bothering to oil the cog. And what you'll see is that the balance between those two components, this is a gross oversimplification to say that the saleability is the job of the advertising agency, the sales is the job of direct digital, and indeed action, obviously. But by and large, what you see is those two skill sets are going to be playing increasingly complementary roles. Now, saleability doesn't go away, it doesn't lose any of its importance. You can do all you like in behavioural terms, and you fundamentally can't sell people something they have no desire for. So what I'm certainly not saying is that anything supplants the conventional job of advertising. I'm just saying that understanding the business of sales and being absolutely unapologetic about it is just as vital a job for all of our clients as any other part of the business. So when it comes to talking about salesmanship, we should be as unapologetic as David Ogilvy was.